So I want to share with you how I taught a brand new life insurance agent to sell over $426,000 of final expense life insurance, his first very year as a life insurance agent. And here is the proof. This individual never sold life insurance before working with us here, my agency at Legacy Family Life. And I'm going to share with you, and he's going to share with you what he learned. He's going to talk about the struggles, the things that he went through as a life insurance agent. He's going to talk to you how he had the breakthrough of how he learned sales and how he learned how to sell at a really, really high level. And ultimately, we're going to take 60 minutes or less, and we're going to teach you all the lessons, all the pain, so that you can just shortcut it and become a more successful life insurance agent after watching this video. So if you want to learn how to win as a life insurance agent, how to get good leads, how to have good systems, and ultimately just make good money as a life insurance agent, this video is for you. Let's jump in and let's learn from Brian.
All right, Brian, so we'll jump into it. Grateful to have you here. You've been on the channel a few times, but we have a milestone. You're coming up on a year as an agent. I don't know if you saw these numbers, though, but you have 450 sales under your belt and $426,000 of final expense premiums sold. Today, you're just going to share with us more about how you got those results. But, man, how awesome is that, coming in with over almost $500,000 in sales and final expense?
That's insane. When I first started a year ago, I never would have thought that I would have been able to hit that kind of metric as far as
Sure.
AP. And so, no, I mean it feels amazing, blessed, and I've learned a lot in the last year, and it's just the beginning, right? Your
Yeah.
first year is the toughest, is what they say in this industry. So, man, I can't imagine what next year is going to look like, and everything else in
Yeah.
between. So,
Yeah,
wow.
man, dude, there's so much to come, but I do want to start off like taking us back. I don't know if you can even recall. I was thinking through this, and your first 30 days as an agent, because just to confirm, you didn't sell life insurance before this. You came in with no real experience and no sales experience, right? So you can touch on that, but your first 30 days, what was some of the pain or the frustration that you experienced in the beginning, and how did you kind of overcome that?
Oof, those first 30 days, man, I still remember that.
Yeah.
So, just I'm kind of putting myself in those shoes again. It was a lot to learn. It was a huge learning curve because, like you said, I came in with no sales experience at all, let alone, selling life insurance, final expense over the phone. And so I would say the first initiation of it was just kind of learning the process of selling. In
Hmm.
other words, the script that we have, and just kind of learning that. That alone was kind of like the biggest curve for me, because on top of that, I was learning the script, but I was also having to learn basic tonality and how
Hmm.
to actually use the script to be able to actually get basically the emotion that I needed to get from the client. At the time, I didn't realize that. I was just trying to do the basics, read the script literally while talking to someone on the phone, and also learning all the systems that we have in place here.
Yeah.
And so it was a little overwhelming, but I think what really helped me out a lot was just really overcompensating with activity.
Hmm.
And when I say that, I was, if I'm not mistaken, I was averaging 500 to 600 dials a day. With those first 30 days, that's what I was just making up for, just because I didn't have the experience, I didn't
Hmm.
have the knowledge, on like underwriting, on the carriers, and everything else in between. So I just
Yeah.
overcompensated as much as I could, right? Trying hard, that saying, and that helped me out a ton because there was a lot of insecurities there starting off because I
Yeah.
wasn't sure if this was for me. But because of the fact that I overcompensated, and even though I didn't know what I was doing, I was able to find those gems within those first 30 days to be able to gain that confidence, not necessarily the skill just yet, but the confidence to be able to keep pushing, right? Come in the
Hmm.
next day and the next day and the next day. And then from there, slowly actually start to build on my skill set, which is where I'm at currently now in my journey
Yeah.
here.
Absolutely. You do have a little bit of a lag, so we'll work through it. But yeah, man, I think the big thing that you focus on is overcompensating with your activity, of how that's important. Breaking the beliefs on our end too, like, damn, how could you do 500 dials in a day? If you were to like let's say you know what you know now, and you had to shortcut like your first 3 months in to learn the skill in like 1 month. So you take your 3 month results and have to cram that into a 1 month experience. What would you do differently, like knowing what you knew now, or what would you focus on to make sure that you could learn how to sell at a high level faster? What would you focus on?
I would say learning tonality, and really what I mean by that is starting to develop the emotional intelligence over the phone. And
Hmm.
so starting to be able to kind of realize how you're asking these questions, and instead of just kind of like not reflecting on what happened, listening to your call and seeing what emotion did you get out of the client in that given moment. So if I could go back, I
Hmm.
would have focused on that, as well as compensating with the activity, but just focusing on the client that I'm on the phone with. That way, I can actually hear, like, if I say something in a curious tone, what result does this get?
Uh-huh.
And then be able to kind of cram that in, so that instead of taking 3 to maybe 6 months to finally start understanding that concept, maybe I could have shortened it, like you said, maybe within like a month, and be able to kind of build off of that, right?
Yeah.
So I would say the biggest thing is really just reflecting on like my own calls more than what I did at the time, because I
Hmm.
was focused on everything else. But I would
Yeah.
definitely say that is like key, is being able to listen to your own calls as soon as possible and refining that right then and there. Because when you're first starting off, you don't really know what you're doing. You don't know your tonality,
Hmm.
right? But if you're listening to yourself and you have someone like you, or someone, a coach, a mentor who's helping you out,
Yeah.
you can ask for that guidance, and then from there just refine it right then and there. Maybe this was a little too high pitched, let me lower it, right? Or maybe this was, I needed to sound empathetic here, so let me focus
Hmm.
on that. And so that would have actually lessened my learning curve a ton.
Interesting. Yeah. So like someone, I think you said something about like having a good coach, but yeah, your tonality is so important. I mean, honestly, dude, there's some people that join the industry that don't have someone that can listen to their calls or give them the coaching. Like, truthfully, if you were just like starting out in an MLM agency and you had no support or upline, do you think you could have like learned the skill, or what would have happened? You think?
Absolutely not.
Interesting.
I would not have been in this position that I'm in now, with the results that I've gotten a year later, if I wouldn't have had a great mentor. And at the time, you were the one that actually trained me,
Interesting.
those
Yeah.
first that first month. And no, I think it's imperative to do your research. And if you're in that position, I'm not saying that you're not going to succeed, right? But
Sure.
what I will say, it's going to be 10 times harder, right? Because I think with anything, if you want to have the results that you're looking for, you want to find someone who's already done that, right? And has social and
Yeah.
credible proof. In this case, that was you for me. And so for someone who doesn't have that opportunity, I would definitely recommend y- the internet, right? The internet's
Yeah.
free. There's a lot of good content. Matter of fact, I'm not just shouting you out just to shout you out when I say this, but you actually have a ton of value that you provide to people that are probably in those shoes. So I would actually strongly recommend to just kind of look at your sales calls and kind of how
Mhm.
you kind of fluctuate your tonality. And maybe they don't have, the processes or the script that we have here, but they can start implementing the concept nonetheless.
Yeah.
And so I'm guarantee you that's going to help them out and be able to get them better results from where they're currently out.
Yeah. Because just you didn't have sales experience. A lot of people get like anybody can learn this business. Just come in. People leave like their jobs. They have families to feed, and they end up getting screwed over in the industry. How would you, knowing what you know now? Let's say you had to like pick an agency to work with. How would you know if the coach? How would you know if you had a good coach that's in your corner that would help you get results? What were some questions that you would ask them? Just for anybody right now who's like joining a company or an agency, and they're not sure, man, did I make a bad decision? What would you how would you advise them?
Yeah. So I think, if for those that are, looking to join the industry and are looking to get recruited by an agency, it's a two-way streak. And so I
I'm gonna
encourage.
pause 1 second, Brian. All right. So what are you thinking there on that coach? What do they need to have?
Yeah, so I would definitely encourage, for those that are looking to get recruited, it's a two-way streak. they're going to ask you questions, but you should also ask them questions and interview them to see if they're a good fit for you. Some of the questions that I would ask, knowing what I know now, is I wouldn't even look at the AP that they talk about, right? Oh, this agent submitted 100,000, 200,000 AP. Those are just vanity metrics, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And so if they're honest with you, a very specific question to ask would be, okay, great. You guys placed XYZ of AP. What's y'all's actual placement rate?
Mm-hmm.
What's y'all's retention rate? And if they're not willing to be transparent with you, that might be a red flag to consider. Just because at the end of the day, you know, anybody can post up how much AP they made, right? I could post I made 400,000 in 1 year. That doesn't mean anything if none of that actually placed. And then I would also ask specific questions as what your training process is. What is it that you guys do as far as mentoring, right? And see what that's about. If they have an actual solid process to where they pour into you, not just I'm going to show you the script, I'm going to train you for a couple days, and good luck, figure it out.
Yeah.
I definitely would not recommend to join that kind of agency at that point, because chances are you're not going to be able to succeed, right? And so I would definitely look at the program, whatever that looks like for those agencies that they have as far as training goes, mentoring goes, and ongoing mentorship as well.
Yeah.
Because in order to be able to, sell at a high level, you need to have your skill set compound. And that's going to be a mixture of you putting in the activity, learning from your mistakes, but also having someone along the way to kind of guide you throughout that whole process. Small example, I got on a call with, I was on Friday. It was Friday yesterday. You were in the room with us, and I unmuted. Right. One of the things that we do here is we unmute to give live feedback. And interestingly enough, my process, I would have gone through a certain part of the script because I felt like I got enough from the client, enough to open up to be able to actually take them to the next step. But you told me right then and there, hey, ask this question, and I asked it, right, and it was a different result. I got them to open up even more. I built
Mm-hmm.
more rapport, and so it's interesting to see how having someone like that in your corner that is going to pour into you not just day one, but continuously. It's it's a blessing in itself, but it just shows you that this is an ongoing thing. It's not just,
Yeah.
hey, I'm going to sell you the dream. You're going to make all these sales. Matter of fact, you might even just have to work part-time. That's not the case. And if you're
Mm-hmm.
hearing that from any agency, I would definitely consider twice before joining them, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's still that ongoing growth that's required. There's even times when, it got hard for you in some weeks and, there were struggles. What was, I guess, what was when did it all start to click? What was that like turning point in your process, and when did that come where you're like, man, I actually maybe understand this a little bit now? What kind of like was that light bulb moment for you? Do you have anything that kind of comes to mind there?
Yeah, I would say right around my 4th month here is when things started to kind of truly click for me, as far as now I'm understanding why I'm asking these questions, but I'm also understanding how to ask these questions to get the emotion that I need to get from the client in that given moment, right? And so it's just interesting to see how with enough repetitions,
Mm-hmm.
your brain will subconsciously start to kind of put things together, right? Everybody learns different, but for me, it was that aha light bulb moment, and ever since then, it's been a learning process from there. But now I know confidently, like I know how to ask this question to get this kind of emotion and be able to drive this kind of result from the client, right?
Yeah.
And it's crazy because it's transferable. I mean, the skill that we're learning here, you can transfer it into anything outside of work. It's like if you're more present with your tonality, it's like, Peter, I mean, what do you mean by that? I mean, kind of fill me in here,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so it's like, to
Yeah.
me, it's amazing because it's like that aha moment has also led to like other areas in my life that I've been able to transfer this skill inside and outside of work. So
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, the art of communication like that. Yeah, so I think so your understanding of the tonality, I guess, was like the big thing of like you can kind of, because I think consistency comes from being able to say things to get the result that you're looking for and do things. It's like if you do X, you get Y. So doing the same thing. Now you probably understand how to say things to get the result that you're looking for. When it comes to like, I have a fill in the blank question. It says most agents struggle with blank. If they fix that, everything would change. So most agents struggle with blank. If they fix that, everything would change. What do you think?
Man, most agents struggle with blank. Okay, this is going to be a broad statement, but I
Okay.
firmly believe it. So
Mm-hmm.
most agents struggle with emotional intelligence, and if they were to
Bars.
fix that, what was the last part of that sentence?
Everything would change.
Everything would
Emotional
change.
intelligence. Okay, let's break that down. When you define emotional intelligence, what does that mean? Because someone's listening, like, I don't know what that even means. What do you think?
Yeah, for me personally, I think emotional intelligence is having the ability to communicate with someone without letting your emotions get in the way of what they're telling you. And so that can mean many different things. For example, if I'm having a discussion with someone, how can I communicate with them to the point where they feel heard, to the
Okay.
point where they're going to open up to me, and also not let my judgment or my opinion or my result of what I want in this conversation overrule what I'm trying to actually do here and is listen to them. And so that's applicable inside and outside of work. And so I feel like in my journey, interestingly enough, right, I've actually kind of been trying to apply this outside of work with multiple different areas. But for example, if we're talking strictly about our process here, emotional intelligence is key. And so to give you very specific examples, right? Let's
Mm-hmm.
say that you're on the phone with someone who's a straight shooter, right?
Yeah.
And so let's say that you've been trained up to this point in your journey, to any agent listening, to maybe ask questions a certain way. But let's say that those kind of questions, or the way you ask that question, has really been tailored towards like one specific avatar of a client. Let's say that it's
Mm-hmm.
like Sweet Miss Betty. And
Yep.
so I'm not going to ask the questions that I need to ask in a way that's not going to be receptive to the person I'm talking to. In this case, a straight shooter, whether it's a man or a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because I've realized that I'm not going to get the result that I'm looking for. I'm not going to get them to be on my side or to make them feel like I'm on their side, and also be able to actually have a connection with them. And so I feel like a lot of agents struggle with that because they don't realize what emotional intelligence is on the phone, right?
Yes, it's what I'm. It's like managing how other people are feeling, and like so, if someone feels mad, if someone's angry, then it's your job as the agent to understand how you can get them to feel, I guess, like better. So you have to change the way that you approach the conversation. It's managing or understanding your own feelings, but also understanding someone else's feelings, right?
Exactly. Being able to kind of balance both out, and more importantly,
Mhm.
theirs than yours. Because if you can build that connection with them, even if they're upset, even if you're in the first 30 seconds of the intro and they're yelling at you, they're cussing you out. I've gotten on calls like that where I've actually closed clients before in those situations. And so that's understanding emotional intelligence.
It's
How
so
can
important too. It's I think everything because your discovery is going to change if you don't know the emotional intelligence. The way that you say everything is going to be so important. How would you? I mean, this is like actually this is a breakthrough moment. Why? How would you train someone to have emotional intelligence? Like that's a really that's a soft skill, not a hard skill. How would you teach someone to be you? You know, Brian. You know, you're not doing it because you know the script, you know the objection handling, but what's really messing you up is you're not emotionally intelligent. How do you fix that?
Yeah, it's there's a saying that goes, it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Okay, so tone. Uh huh.
So not just tone, but also actively listening. And so basically,
Okay.
let's say that I already had in mind, I'm going to say this next. This is my next question. But then let's say that opportunity for you to build rapport. For example, you're on the phone with a client doesn't matter what part of your script you're in. Let's say that they had someone who passed away recently.
Okay.
What would you do as the agent there? Would you just kind of like acknowledge and move on, or would you actually sit there and be able to
Mm-hmm.
actually
Empathy.
empathy? Exactly. That's a soft skill. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's an example right there to build an opportunity or to have an opportunity to build rapport with the client. So how can I show empathy to this person? Right? I personally, for the record, I struggle with empathy. That's not my biggest strength. I'm a very boxed, result driven, let's go
Uh-huh.
kind of guy. But I've also learned that, in order to actually connect with clients, at times I have to be able to show empathy. And so for me, it's understanding basic frameworks of that, right? So, for example, if Peter told me here that his brother passed away recently, well,
Uh-huh.
I'm going to talk to Peter the way that he wants to be talked to, first of all, right? If Peter's a straight shooter, I'm still going to show him empathy, but it'll probably sound something like this: Man, Peter, I'm so sorry to hear that. I mean, how have you been doing since then? Have you been doing all
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, I'm hanging in there.
You're hanging in there.
Compared to if I was a 75-year-old Betty and my husband dies, how would you sound?
Oh my goodness, Miss Betty, your husband just
Hmm.
passed away. Is that right?
Right,
Oh
absolutely.
my
So you
god.
completely changed, and even your physical posture changed too.
Everything changes about me, my demeanor and
Hmm.
everything else, because just because you're on the phone with someone doesn't mean that you're not communicating with your body language. I mean,
Hmm.
90% of communication is through our body language. Now, all we have is our tone, but that doesn't mean that we can't use our body language to express these things. And so having that emotional intelligence, those soft skills on the spot is what's going to help you be able to achieve what I'm talking about, right? As far as when you hear these small little cues, when you hear like a pain word, it's going to be a burden or it would be tough on them.
Hmm.
How can you take that and make something much more out of one word that they gave you? And so that also involves, like I said, active listening. So I would
Hmm.
definitely say those kind of things is what's going to help agents elevate to the next levels, is understanding emotional intelligence and start kind of
Uh-huh.
learning and applying that if and when they have those opportunities to build that with the client.
So good. I feel like a lot of people when they listen to these, it's like just make the dials and do the activity and work hard. But there's like so much beyond that you're breaking through. That's really important, and why it's so crucial to have a great coach that can kind of help you figure that out. When it comes to like getting duplicatable results, 400,000 a premium that takes a good system, good leads. When it comes to like just the type of lead, okay? Just the lead itself. Knowing what you know now, what would a bad lead look like where you're like, man, I actually couldn't sell $400,000? Because there's a lot of talented people in an agent that are working right now. There's like, I'm not getting the results, and they have the skill set, they have the emotional intelligence, but their lead quality is so bad it's preventing them from making the sales. What would you say you need to look for in a lead if you are calling and trying to do sales? Final expense.
Yeah, so if we're talking about the leads, there's only so much you can control in that area as an agent, right? Um,
Yeah.
I would say that in my personal experience, what makes a good lead, in other words, when you get on the phone, the first 30 seconds, you're like, oh, this is a sale, right? I just have to go through the process.
Uh huh.
Is clear pain, first of all,
Clear pain.
clear
Good.
need.
Clear need.
And so if within those first 30 seconds to a minute, they know what they're looking for, they know what they want, that's a good sign.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, they have a bank account, right?
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
I mean, as funny as that is, right? Just kind of from what I've seen statistically speaking, and from what I've learned here, is card business isn't really good business, right? Let's be honest. There's a lot of chargebacks, and just statistically speaking. So if they have a bank account, an
Good.
active checking or savings account to be able to actually fund this on auto draft. Also, now this isn't necessarily against the client, but also, the premium that you're actually writing. That's a huge part of it too. Now that's more towards the end. I'll talk about that
Sure.
here in a minute. But I would say the characteristics that you want to, if you're
Mhm.
listening to something or a good lead, it's they're willing to play ball. In other words,
Right.
they're willing to open up to you when you start asking these questions. Even if it's like small things like medical, they start opening up to you like, oh, I've lost 30 pounds on Ozempic. You know what I'm saying? Those are
Mhm.
green flags. They're opening up to you. they're being receptive, they're allowing you as the agent to kind of go through the process without having so much rebuttals, right? And so, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a few things that I think through. Yeah, so there's a clear goal. It's like basically someone's raising their hand saying that I actually fill this out. I have a clear goal, and then you're kind of qualifying them a little deeper with the bank account. Making sure they have. You touched on premium a little bit too. I think a huge mistake that maybe you probably made in the beginning is like not focusing on good premium. What does good premium slash like good policies look like? What would be what would that look like if you're selling business but it's not strong? And how could you immediately fix that to make sure that you're actually making progress as an agent? What would that look like?
Yeah. So in terms of like premium, what I would say, anything below $50,
Okay,
it's not gonna,
50 bucks.
statistically speaking here, it's not really gonna place. It's not really gonna
Mhm.
hold for the long haul. And so I would definitely advise you guys to kind of make that your new standard. Don't pitch anything below it because you want to solve their problem at the end of the day, right? And if you're pitching a $40, $30 option for only $6,000 worth of premium and they're looking to cover a formal burial, are you going to solve the full problem to the fullest degree? No. Are you going to solve it to an extent? Yes. But the problem with that is the client doesn't see the value behind something like that. If it's only $20 to $30 a month, chances are come next month, they're going to have a flat tire, let's say, or, um, one of the agents here has talked about one of his clients prioritized Taco Bell versus paying their premium. And so things like that are going to happen and they're most likely going to let that policy go. And that ends up being a chargeback for you guys versus whenever you actually are building the value in the product, not building the emotion, the value here. If you focus on inflation, for example, because that's a
Yeah.
real thing, that's value that you're providing to them, right? When you bring that up in your process, really hone in on the inflation,
Mm,
and then when you mix that in with the pain that you've built in your discovery, so that way, that right there is what's going to allow you to actually pitch a higher premium without feeling nervous that, oh my gosh, this is out of their budget. And also, speaking of, don't shop with your wallet,
mhm.
right? A lot of times, what we make as an agent, I've made this mistake before, is they say they're on a fixed income and I'm like trying to work with them, but I'm shopping with my wallet instead of
Right.
actually solving their problem. And
Mhm.
so, what I would say is $50 is the bare minimum. I would pitch anywhere from 65 being your
Okay.
first option, maybe $80 your second option, and then max option at the end, whatever that looks like with the carrier that you're pitching with them, and then let them choose. And let's say that, after you've pitched these options, they give you a little bit of rebuttal like, oh, that's kind of out of the budget. Okay, well, that's where the emotional intelligence come into play, right? What are you going to do now? Well,
Yep.
you're not gonna sell them something like this. But the good thing is, if you started at $65, you have some wiggle room to downsell them at that point, right?
Mhm.
If you've built enough rapport with them as they're being their agent on the phone, they're going to trust you whenever you downsell them. And also, right, chances are you're still solving the problem at around a $50 range policy to where when that first payment is due, not only is it going to place, but it's also going to retain the first, second, third, and going forward, right? Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's what I would
Very
advise in
good.
terms of that.
Yeah. Man, I love it. It's a lot of really, really, really great advice there. When it comes to if you were to like, if you were to tell, I guess someone who's watching this who's stuck at like just man, can't get past 5,000 a month in premium, and they're frustrated with their advice with their results. What would you, they've been stuck at 5,000 for the last 4 to 5 months. What would you kind of tell them that they need to do differently?
Join Legacy Family Life. No. That's y'all's choice, guys. But no, for those people that are struggling, they feel like they're capped. I
Yeah,
would I would definitely kind of reflect on, once again, kind of going back to your own basics, looking at yourself, because at the end of the day, it is a you problem, you know. And I mean that in the utmost like respect.
sure.
If you're not getting the results that you want, it's because you're not there yet. You're not
Or
at that
changing.
level, right? You're not making any changes in your process, the way that you sell, to be able to do that. And so the basics that I've always said in previous videos is look at your activity, right? Number one, how many dials are you making a day? to
Mhm.
be able to achieve your results that you're looking for. Also, what we just talked about, ongoing training, right? Not just getting frustrated because you couldn't close your first, second client, and just kind of go from there, right? And be able to have that faith to where if you give yourself more swings at the bats, even if it means getting more leads, to be able to kind of do that, have the opportunity, well, then eventually your skill set will compound. But you need to give yourself the opportunity to do that, right? And
Yeah,
so, yeah, that's what I would say for those agents that are struggling at the moment. It's just kind of look at your activity, also track your numbers.
that's good.
I don't know if anybody does that. For those that are listening, you need to track your numbers. When I say numbers, what are you looking for? You're looking for the amount of dials you make. You're looking for your contact to presentation rate, your presentation to close rate, because the
Mhm.
numbers don't lie at the end of the day. The data is data. And so if you're going every single day just coming in on the phones, not tracking this, you're going in blindly. And of course, after a month or two, you're going to get frustrated because you have nothing to reflect off your results. But if you look at your data and you see that, let's say that, your presentation to your contact to presentation is
Which what
low.
it, what does it need to be, and what would low look like?
So a low contact to presentation rate, as far as, well, depending on the people's standards here, but ours is what's considered low would be, was it 10% here? Because I know
It's
50%
50%
is,
close rate, 30%
yeah.
contact to presentation.
So anything
Correct.
below 30%, guys,
Uh huh.
that's an area to look at, right? That's an area to look at. So if you have a
Which would
10,
mean someone would have a struggle with what? If someone's like, man, my contact to presentation rate is 5%. What would you say like they struggle with?
when I say contact, that means you got someone on the phone, but you
Mm-hmm.
weren't able to get into a presentation. Okay. So
Yep.
for the record, so if you're tracking that number, how many people picked up the phone and how many people I present to, and you have something below 30%, that
Correct.
means that you have an intro problem. That means
Mm-hmm.
that you probably are struggling with intro objections, right? That means that the very first objection they give you, I'm busy, I'm at the doctor, something happened, blah, blah, blah. You're you're not fighting hard enough, right? And so that's an intro problem. Now, let's
Sure.
say that you have a good contact to presentation rate. Let's say that it's 30% or above. Great,
Mm-hmm.
you're killing it. That's really good. But let's say that your presentation to close rate is only 25%. That most likely means that you have either a closing problem, but I would say I'm willing to bet it's a discovery problem at that point, right? It means
Yeah.
that your discovery, you're not building enough urgency, enough pain, enough value, so that when you get to that close, well, you don't have these rebuttals at the end. And so tracking your numbers is what's going to elevate your game. Okay. If you're not tracking your numbers, keep it simple, guys. Don't overthink it. Google spreadsheet. I suck at spreadsheets. Okay. I'm not a genius, but just literally make five different, or just literally make the things that I'm telling you about, the categories, right? Contact, presentation, close, and then the amount of dials that you made.
Mm-hmm.
If you track that on a daily basis, you will see where you're doing good at and where you need to work on.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't work on something that you don't know needs work unless you track it.
Yeah. I think it all comes down to the power of feedback throughout all this whole process. You talked a lot about you need someone to help give you feedback when you're wrong. You also need personal feedback when you look at your numbers, because then you can understand what you need to adapt and change. And I guess this helps someone right now like understand, how would you encourage someone who's struggling to kind of push through? Because there's people that like, man, they get started, they get their license, they don't make sales for 30 days and they quit, or they don't go all in. Like, what would your advice be to one of those people who are just like, man, I'm gonna try for 30 days, and if it doesn't work out, I'm not gonna do it. Like, what are they missing out on?
Man, for those that are in that role, or not that role, but that are in that kind of position, you won't see the fruit of your labors until you've put enough work in. And so that's going to take longer than 30 days. I'm here to tell you guys, right?
Hmm.
And the opportunity that you're missing out on is being able to learn a skill that is transferable, right? And it's more about the skill than anything, at least for me. Well, on top of helping the families out, of course, right? Families first, right? I'm not, let me rephrase that, but I'm talking in strictly in terms of the agent point of view, right?
Sure.
For me, it's about the skill set, but I wasn't able to do that by 30 days. I wasn't able to
Mhm.
do that by 60 days. I wasn't able to do that by 90 days. It took me almost
Mhm.
4 months to finally start understanding what I was doing and build
Yeah.
off of it at that point. That was like the beginning point for me. And so for those that are in that kind of position, you guys are like in a mental rut, or it's just like you're not getting the results that you're wanting. I think there's a saying, I think Alex says it, Mr. Hormozy, maybe you've heard of it before. The world belongs to those that can keep doing the work without seeing the
I've seen the
results.
result. Yeah.
And so
That
I would encourage you guys to keep going. Please don't give up, And if you're not seeing the results that you're wanting, and you are putting in the most amount of effort that you can put in, well, and then at that point, it might be time to look at maybe the agency that you're in, right? And I mean,
who
I've
you're
been
with.
I've been blessed to be here, not have to worry about chargebacks, not to have to worry about the customer care side of things. And so, in some way, yeah, I've had it easier than other agents as far as starting off. But I would definitely encourage you guys at that point to kind of reflect on that and not give
Mhm.
up on the opportunity, because if you at that point, if you feel like it's a mentor issue thing, that you're just not getting the guidance that you need, well, then at that point, it might be time to actually look into finding a different mentor that will actually
Yeah.
help you. I mean, I am living proof of it. I am. I came with no experience. I've been documenting the journey here with you. You've interviewed me a couple times, and
Mhm.
now it's been a year later, right? And I've been able to have
Just massive
very good
growth.
results. Yeah. So
When it what that I love, and it's been so fun to see you grow and really develop too as an agent, and just personally in all areas too, which is really awesome. When it comes to, like, I think, what would be the character traits like of a bad agent? Because let's say someone watched this and, for example, they're, forgive me for saying this, but stay-at-home mom that has two kids. They're trying to do this part-time and never sold anything over the phone, and worked, as a, in certain positions. Like, what would be character traits of someone who, like, truly shouldn't do final expense telesales role? And we're not discrediting them, but what would be something that would you think describe someone who's not really cut out to do this?
yeah. Um, I mean, I think you should have some sort of track record of success in your life. I mean, that can look different for many people, right? And it's not so much of the like achievement that you've done, it's the qualities that you have that you were able to do that, right? To achieve
Mm.
X thing. And so first thing that comes to my mind is someone who's uncoachable.
Yeah.
That's definitely a trait that I would, if you're uncoachable, if you're not willing to, be humble, in other words, and get live feedback and be able to refine your process, this isn't going to be a good fit for you, right? Especially if there's someone that has the results that you're looking for. I definitely would not recommend it, because it's going to be an internal struggle at that point. If someone isn't emotionally intelligent or willing to, once again, be able to go through the frustrations of being able to communicate with someone better, I definitely wouldn't recommend it for you, right? Because you have to be able to adapt and be able to actually be willing to take feedback. If you don't have the work ethic, I mean, I'm just going to bluntly say it there, right? If you're not willing to put in, this is my personal journey here. If you're not willing to put in, 50 to 60 hours when you first start off, I wouldn't recommend it, right? The reason why I'm saying that is because you need to give yourself enough chances to swing at the bat. Whether
Yeah.
you're independent or here, you need to put in the time in. You need to put in the sweat, the long hours to be able to achieve the results that you're looking for. And so I wouldn't recommend it, right? If you're not a people person, right? If you're
Mhm.
not if you're not genuinely concerned and wanting to actually serve the clients that we serve, which is senior citizens, and you're just in it to make a buck, I wouldn't recommend this for you, right?
It's gonna be hard. Yeah.
Exactly. And if you,
Absolutely.
yeah. And one last thing there is, if you're someone who, if you just, I mean, yeah, I'll just say it how it is. If you just don't have any kind of like moral integrity, okay, because let's be honest, the industry is very shady. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
agents, and I'm not dogging on every agent, but to those that are doing things unethically, right? I wouldn't recommend this industry for you either way because you're
Yeah,
not helping any families out, right? But if you're someone who's hungry, who's smart, who's humble, who's willing to be coached, who wants to learn, who's willing to go through the process, who's willing to continuously want to get better, and be able to evolve, then yeah, I would definitely recommend this. Someone who has some sort of track record of winning, right? In their own personal life, whether it's you lost 30 pounds or you did this or you did that, I would definitely recommend it. For someone who has a part-time mentality, I wouldn't recommend this for you,
absolutely.
period.
So good. Yeah, if you've gone through previously succeeding, the reason that I thought you didn't have the sales experience, but you learned how to dance, and that was one of the coolest things is that you had to show up early, had to get coaching, and you learned how to dance at a high level, which is like a great sign. So previous success isn't just in sales; it's in any areas of your life, like you're talking about. Shout out DC Pachata. But but no, Brian. Anything else that you would want to share on your journey of how you could help anybody, or maybe an agent's on the fence, they want to go all in? Any advice that you'd give to them?
Yeah, whenever you say all in, go all in, guys. You have nothing to lose and everything else to gain. And so if kind of like I just said, be willing to do it. Be willing to put in those reps and find a community, a group of people that are in the same boat that you're in, but that are helping you in the sense of like keeping your mental framework sharp every single day. Because if you find people like-minded that are also wanting to grow, that are also wanting to be killers in the industry, then that's going to rub off on you and also be able to help you on the lows.
Your
Because
journey,
this
yeah.
because the highs are high, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong, but the lows are lows. And those are the weeks that really test you because it's like it really shows you what you're made out of internally, to have that grit and to keep pushing forward, right? But just realize that if you stay consistent at this, you have a game plan for independent agents, right? As far as, being able to maybe have a little bit of savings for your lead investment and live off for a couple of days. I'm not too familiar with that side, but I can imagine, don't spend all your commission money that you get the first month because chances are you're going to have chargebacks, so you want to plan ahead for those kind of things. And so
Yep,
just have an actual game plan, right? And just stick to it, and the results will eventually come for themselves. But that's also a byproduct of having a good mentor. And so this guy to my there you go, this side over here, this guy's a great mentor, right? And Peter, I want to shout you out too, man, because you provide
sure.
everyone so much value on the YouTube channel. That's how actually I found the agency here that I've been with for a year. And so, yeah, I mean, I hope this video served whoever's looking, whoever's watching, a ton of value. If you guys have any questions, you can find me on Instagram, Bromirez, BROMIREZ_97. I'd be more than happy to kind of, give you guys any feedback on my journey here and also just provide you guys more value.
Absolutely. Brian, you're the man. Thanks for your journey. Congrats on all your success. And, uh, I think it was awesome to hear kind of the unlock of how well you've developed and learned the sales process. So thanks for being on here today, dude.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks for the interview. Happy to be
Yeah,
here.
man. Cool. I'm going to end it here.